So on July the 26th, 3 days from now, Uranus will conjunct the North Node. And then let me see if I can get these dates for you once and for all. And then July the 31st, Mars conjuncts Uranus. Actually, no, July the 31st, Mars conjuncts the North Node. And then on August the 1st, Mars conjuncts Uranus. So we've got Uranus and the North Node conjuncting on July the 26th, and we've got Mars conjuncting the North Node on the 31st of July and Uranus on the August the 1st. So the Mars-Uranus North Node conjunction, which is currently underway, comes together by August the 1st. So as I said, really pay attention to whatever it is that's going on this week. The sign of Taurus is where we have the North Node eclipses. I'm going to adjust my image a little bit if I can. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. I think it's the content that's more interesting than the image. The sign of Taurus is where we have our North Node eclipses. And a quick reminder of the timeline that we're dealing with here. Between September and November of last year, 2021, is when we may have started to feel this fresh set of energies that have been allowing us to focus on the Taurus part of our chart. And by that I mean which house is occupied by Taurus in your chart and what does that house stand for. And with the North Node eclipses, there's a need for us to push ourselves and lean into that part of the chart because it is necessary for our life story, our hero's journey, our development. It's always best to approach anything related to the North Node in a grounded manner, but it's also necessary, especially in the culture that we live in 2022, where we do honor our desires and where we do pay attention to whatever it is that's knocking on our heart or wherever it is that we're being led to deal with, to move in that direction, to invest in that direction, to strengthen and to grow in that arena. It's not necessarily, and it hasn't been for a while, also for a lot of 2021, the easiest growth because there have been the squares. Uranus has been squared Saturn for much of 2021. Uranus in Taurus, Saturn in Aquarius, and my last video was in Saturn in Aquarius, so you can refer back to that, and you should. But at the same time, whatever's been going on in the sign of Taurus is also aiding and working with the energies in Capricorn to assist in the transformation of the Capricorn part of the chart. And that is what I did around the time of the Capricorn full moon, a video on Pluto in Capricorn. I will pull all this together as we keep going. Now, let's continue with the Taurus timeline. September to November of last year is when the Taurian energies that we are meant to lean into, where there is growth, where there's energy, where there's a need for application, where there's a need to strengthen skills, started to come into our lives. And then Mercury came into the Taurus part of our chart from April 11th to April 29th of this year. The Sun came into Taurus on April the 22nd. On April the 30th, we had the new moon solar eclipse. And we have a corresponding lunar eclipse on November the 8th. On May the 10th, Mercury went retrograde in Gemini, but then came back to Taurus on May the 23rd, went direct, I think it was June the 3rd or so, out of Taurus again on June the 13th. And then Venus also was in Taurus from May the 28th to June the 23rd. On June the 30th, the week before, week after, that would be around the time of the Cancer new moon, I would have said that was 2 months after the Taurus solar eclipse, so I would certainly think about and pay attention to whatever came up during that time, a week before and after June the 30th. And on July the 5th, Mars came into Taurus. And Mars remains in Taurus till August the 20th. 2 months before the November 8th lunar eclipse is September the 8th. And I would certainly look at the week before and week after September the 8th as important developments in this kind of Taurus timeline, and then November the 8th is the full moon lunar eclipse. It wouldn't surprise me at all if actually whatever the thing is that is kind of trying to come through comes through around September the 8th, and just kind of grows as we head towards November the 8th. With Mercury being in Taurus for an extended period of time and splitting its time between Gemini and Taurus, I've also talked about the dynamic relationship between the people who are sitting in the Gemini part of the chart and whatever needs to be developed in the Taurus part of your chart. And with Mercury, there's the idea of communication. And while Mercury was retrograde, May the 10th to June the 3rd, it may well have been the things that were developing, particularly in February, March, and April, something about whatever was developing emerged that was in your blind spot. And then Venus came in May the 28th to June the 23rd, bringing opportunities and money and kind of smoothing things out. And then we had the developments before and after June the 30th. And here we are now into July with Mars in this part of the chart. July the 5th to August the 20th. And Mars is making its most important conjunctions within the next week. Wherever Mars goes, a significant amount of our energy goes. And as I've mentioned with Mars, it's about the execution of our goals and tasks and going after what we want, but it's also engaging in action and activity that could involve us in a certain amount of conflict, because when we go after whatever it is that we want, chances are we're going to come up against energies that may not be quite aligned with giving us what we want. And so there is this, it's a kind of a tarot 5 of Wands energy, for lack of a different way of putting it, like clashes with people, misunderstandings, clearing the air, articulating one's goals, going after one's goals. There's the energy of compromise, there's the energy of conflict, there's the energy of boundary protection, but there's the energy of progress. And one of the things that is coming up so much with this timeline is that it almost feels like from September to when Mercury was retrograde and went direct, so September to the middle of May or even June, it was as if the train was on a certain track and it was going in a certain direction. And then somewhere in May or June, it was almost as if another track started to appear. And so the things that we were expecting to move forward in the way that we were expecting to are not quite going in that direction anymore, or at least that's what it feels like. And it's like, well, is there something else that's going to open up that has a similar thematic energy or a similar opportunity that I'm going to need to focus on? Or this thing that was going in a certain direction since last September, is that going to change? And am I going to continue to be part of it? There's a kind of I don't even know that it's a fork in the road as much as there's a feeling of things changing and shifting and evolving, which is why Mars's energy right now is so helpful and important, because it enables us to get involved in the process of constructing whatever it is that we might want to construct in this Taurus part of our chart. Typically, the time frame between 2 months after a solar eclipse, June the 30th, and 2 months before the lunar eclipse in a sign, September the 8th, I would say is when everything is kind of fallen to the floor. I'm not expecting a lot of action as much as I'm expecting us to piece things together and make sense of things. And I think that's very much part of the energy. But this year with Mars and Taurus, during this typically dead time between the eclipses, kind of the midpoint between the eclipses, we have uncharacteristically a certain amount of energy that we are being asked to put in this direction. Now, Mars and Taurus is a notoriously uncomfortable energy because Taurus is a slow and steady wins the race kind of sign. Every inch gained is an inch retained. It is a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back is 1 step forward kind of a sign. And Mars, of course, is a planet that points the arrow in the direction it wants and goes after it. You know, it is direct. It does not like opposition. It is the male testosterone planet, and it likes to. So it's almost as if, you know, we have I won't say the bull in the china shop, because the bull is the animal related Taurus, but we do have this kind of ram in a china shop feeling, and the ram is likely, Mars is not going to feel quite so comfortable. There might just be too much china, too much clutter, too much flow, too much. It's not the most, but the bottom line is Mars is still in this part of the chart. And so whether you like it or not, you are going to either be taking action or going to be called upon to defend your boundaries in this part of the chart. And the energy continues till August the 20th. And we're just a little after July the 20th. But the next week or so become really important in us determining whether we will stay in a particular thread, or whether we will still be on the same train that has been going in a certain direction since September of last year, with the Mercury retrograde period for much of May and June, and especially around June the 30th, bringing up things that may have given us visibility into something that we did not have before, and then determine, do we get to stay on that same train or do we switch trains? Am I at a train station where there's another train that may not be going to exactly the same destination that train A was taking me, but train B gets me to, it's the same theme. It may not be the same project, it could be something else, or is it the original train that has to somehow change tracks to get to wherever it is that it's designed to get to, and do I board it or do I not? When Mars conjuncts Uranus, it is again, sort of notoriously, famously independent, rebellious energy. It is an incredibly authentic energy. And when Mars conjuncts the North Node, and Uranus conjuncts the North Node, again, it's a very authentic energy. Our development, our path, our desires, where we are meant to lean into, where we're meant to go. It's not, it's not the most comfortable of energies necessarily, but the phrase "should I stay or should I go" is kind of overused, but it's almost a kind of a, what do I put up with, or is there an opportunity here, and does that opportunity resonate with what is the right path for me? Now, with Uranus in this part of the chart, it could very well be that, give me 1 second. Uranus has been in Taurus since May 2018, making us more and more authentic. Kind of amazing when I think about it, actually. Making us more and more authentic in this part of our chart, making us more and more rebellious, making us more and more individual. The question is, what is this individuality that Uranus is trying to carve out, this authenticity that Uranus is trying to carve out in the Taurus part of your chart? What is this quantum leap of understanding that Uranus is trying to give you? If you are doing things in a very linear manner in the Taurus part of your chart, it could very much be that Taurus is trying to disrupt this linearity. Oh, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And Uranus is like, no. What is truly you? Where are you going to shine? What is right for you? What is the song that you are meant to sing? What feels right in your heart? Let's get you in that direction. Let's put you there now. Disrupt what is in your way. The biggest challenge or downside might be that in the disrupting, but still, Uranus is there working. And especially this next week and a half, just pay attention to, you have been given signs since September of last year about the direction that you are going to want to move in this Uranus part of the chart. You have been given, sometimes with Uranus, we may not always be listening to or paying attention to whatever this quantum leap is trying to be in this career part of the chart. Sometimes we ourselves don't fully cooperate with Uranus, or indeed the North Node's direction to us to go for it. Sometimes we ourselves in our narratives can hold ourselves back too much in a very linear manner, can hold ourselves from being disruptive. can struggle with conformity to a particular process, to a particular set of expectations of how things should be done and how we should progress. Sometimes we think that when it comes to the North Node eclipses or Uranus or Mars, that it is about a specific opportunity, a specific project. But it could be, and likely is, about direction. Does that make sense? So that the things that work out for however long they work out and then cease to work out, or there are question marks around whether they work out, or it's question marks whether the train I have boarded since September of last year, is it the right train? Is there a train B? Train B hasn't appeared. Is it going to appear? Which train am I boarding? How am I? There's something about that process that is trying to give us a signal around playing a bigger game in the Taurus part of our chart, and having perhaps and exercising more control over a direction that is more authentic to us, that is more individual, that is more liberated, that is seemingly rebellious, that is unusual, that is non-conforming or conformist, that feels right and is true. And Mars's conjunction with the North Node in Uranus is very likely going to create a kind of a kaboom that could, for some people, manifest in clarity around a particular project and a feeling like, okay, this can work. I get to remain on the same train. Something has come through that is going to continue to grow till November, and then even for part of next year, that keeps me on the same train that I've been on since September of last year, 2021, that makes it very clear about the direction I'm supposed to move in this Taurus part of my chart. Or else, something could happen that makes you think, this is no longer real and true for me, and as heartbreaking and challenging as it's going to be for me to have to end this or say goodbye to this, because I can just tell that I am not in the right room anymore. At least continues to lead you onto a more authentic path. Mars conjunct Uranus conjunct the North Node. I mean, we couldn't get more hero's journey. And I think that conventionally there's a lot of talk about opportunity. And I think there's as much opportunity for something that is seemingly a loss, perhaps. That makes you take your rucksack or whatever it is that you're going to take on your back and head in the direction that is right for you. Sometimes the things that are uncomfortable for us, that don't work out, that are not right for us, that are meant to end, as heartbreaking and as challenging as they are the ones that show to us and identify to us who we really are and what our song really is and what our fullest potential really is. And it's possible that those things don't work out because they're not going to be a happy experience. They're not going to tap into our fullest expression of who we are. They're not going to lead to the fullest expression of our potential. And they're not the right rooms for us, the right people for us. And through that process, it may be that we get to identify and know and understand. It's an inner knowing with Uranus and the North Node of, oh, this is the path that is right for me, and I'm going to start moving on it and towards the direction that is right for me. And even if it feels like it's thorny or it's full of bramble bushes or the proverbial, and I'm underlining the word proverbial, machete needs to come out. Do not take this as an okay. to get firearms or arms or damaging tools of any sort. But the idea is whatever it is that I need to, my path may feel with the North Node. Remember, with the North Node, it's a direction we know we need to go in, but we don't necessarily have the skills, but we have the desire. And so when we go on it, that's what makes life exciting, and that's what gives life meaning. The idea that we're actually on this path and we get to learn and grow and acquire skills and experience magic and synchronicity. And it is about the journey. Life is so much more meaningful when we align with the North Node and ascertain what is our level of comfort with the groundedness that we need in our lives, because the North Node's path is typically ungrounded. So that's the only problem with the North Node, that you've really got to be clear about how much money do you need to have, how much do you need to have in your bank, what's paying the bills, how are you moving forward, that kind of grounding needs to be there. Also, North Node will just kind of catch you by your tail and swing you around its head. And you'll be following your hero's dream, but you might find yourself sleeping on pavements. And that is not pleasant. And if it can be avoided and you can go after things in a more grounded way, why not try and choose a path and see what opens up for you that helps you along that process. However, pay attention to what happens this coming week or so, week and a half. Because it might identify for you. Now, if there's an opportunity that has hit the skids in some ways, or a process that has hit the skids in some ways because you've learned something or identified something while Mercury was retrograde in Taurus and Gemini, then it could be that through conversations and compromise and action that is taken, you're somehow able to get things back on track. But pay attention to what the nature of that compromise is. Is it leading you to what feels right for you? Or are you compromising? Are you saying yes when you really mean no, or saying no when you really mean yes? And that energy of, it's not going to work with this conjunction. Because this conjunction will make you say yes when you want to say yes and no when you want to say no. And somewhere inside, you're just going to know. And there's going to be the struggle with yourself because you may have to give up what is safe and what is known to at least identify what is right for you in this Taurus part of the chart. There's so much more to say on this because the Leo new moon plays an active role in this, and there are other transits that this conjunction makes, but I'm going to leave that for my next video, okay? I just want to introduce this for now. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click on the bell icon and the wiggly bell thing on top to be notified whenever I do new videos, and more to come.